This is a music podcast, so let's do the
Yeah,
music here.
we love music we love our music recommendations, folks, don't we? We really love our music recommendations. We do music recommendations not as often as we'd like to, but I'm glad that we do from time to time because then we can really get into some like really interesting artists. Um, for example, we have Black Country New Road with my first pick with For the First Time. This is I'm pretty sure their debut album. This is like one of their first like fuller release projects. Um they've released some singles earlier, at least as early as 2019 from what I can find right now. But yeah, For the First Time, it's a really interesting sort of piece. It's 6 songs, 40 minutes long. So that means you have some really long songs in the piece, in the whole thing. Um,
Hmm.
I guess it's kind of in the vein of like this post punk sort of thing that we've seen from a couple of artists. Like we had the Hold Steady release that thing earlier this year where it's like a lot of spoken word and there's different instrumentation going on in the background, you know, a little bit of guitar there, a little bit of drums, but nothing like too wild or crazy. It can almost be sort of like easy listening, but not quite because like especially the lyrical content is a
Right.
little bit like wild and off kilter, very referential. I think there's one song in there, either Science Fair or Sunglasses, that has a line about basically being a stan of someone and like their fan, like being a fan of someone so much that drives them to a point of like actual insanity, and they're just kind of doing it for the virality of it. It's kind of like a really um irreverent, pointed kind of song that I think is really interesting. And it's very experimental too. I was very like surprised to hear that kind of thing. It's gotten a lot of like
Interesting.
praise for coming out this year so far. It came out, I believe, in February. Yeah, and yeah, it's just very avant-garde. It's one that's like first hit. Like you really nailed a really cool thing here. I'm not sure what they sound like as a band because it's such like a interesting project, but like still kind of approachable. It's not like Death Grips, like you have to like really get
Right.
into it. But it,
Oh
yeah,
God.
no, it's not going to be anything scary like that or like that off-putting. The lyrics are definitely like something to like. They're meant to be deep and sort of like cutting. Not necessarily like deep, like oh wow, I'm thinking about things differently I've never thought of before. It's like it's meant to be kind of like
Mhm.
cutting and biting in that kind of way. But it's really interesting. I definitely recommend that.
All right, cool. Well, I got my pick. It's Crystal Castles. We never talked about them because the last time they released an album was in 2016, so it's right before the year before we started Audioface. They're a Toronto electronic duo where they are very avant-garde and different. They've had a couple of different people kind of throughout their performing with them and stuff. So but anyways, they've had 2 albums that I've listened to a lot. Their debut album in '08, uh, uh, self-titled album that they have a lot of good tracks on there. You have Crime Wave, Vanished, some other like kind of obscure tracks and everything. It's not super off-putting, but I know like they're known for their live shows being like absolutely weird and crazy and stuff. Kind of compared to Grimes, but minus the Elon craziness and everything, and not knowing what communism is. But anyways, their last album that came out, Amnesty, in 2016, was a decent album. I think like they've had some controversies and stuff within their group within like not paying royalties to one of their older members and stuff, and there's been a whole thing with them. But they've had some very good music that have come out, and it's a Canadian group, so you don't really hear too many like stuff out of Canada every once in a while. I mean, you have Caribou and Jesse Lanza that are Canadian, and I think part of Junior Boys. Jeremy from Junior Boys, and the other one is German, I believe. So a couple of good Canadian musicians out there. But Crystal Castles I've listened to a lot. I just realized I'm like, wait, I've never recommended them on the podcast. So it'll be interesting to see if anyone else has listened to them as well. And I heard like allegedly they're supposed to have something soon, but I have no idea.
Yeah, since 2016.
I heard that last year
Yeah,
too.
since
So
2016. That's definitely a long time. So
yeah,
we'd be surprised to hear them releasing an album. And there are artists who do like this year's the year, this year's the year, this year's the year. But 2020 was a
yeah,
year,
exactly,
and now 2021 is a different year. And that being a year where a lot of
exactly.
artists are releasing music that they were previously planning for 2020 that now they want to release in 2021 because then they can
Hmm.
do a touring cycle for it. Theoretically,
Right.
Delta variant come through. Anyways, That's really good. Yeah, I'll definitely check that out.
Can't hear anything.
Hiatus Coyotes, Mood Valiant. It is 12 songs long, 42 minutes long. It came out earlier this year. And I want to say it came out like even earlier this month. Or I'm sorry, last month in May or June. But Hiatus Coyote, I think, was recommended to me by Tammy, I want to say, in an early episode of
Okay, cool.
Audioface. And wow, this is an album. It's really interesting. It like has its own sort of R&B sort of like stylings, I guess, and sounds to it. Um, it's at times extravagant and interesting. It has this like great sort of like jazzy bass piano thing to it. And it's a really good like album that plays really nicely through all the way through as a piece, right? The female vocalist in there, I'm not sure her name is, but it's just really gorgeous going through it. It just sort of like hypnotic going through your ears. It has that kind of effect. And if I mentioned the song Chivalry's Not Dead, especially, just really interesting. I
Mm,
also really dug Red Room. I put that on our 2021 playlist because I think it's a cool contrast to Rumpus Room by Shushu, which we reviewed earlier this year. And they have similar names, so it's cool. But yeah, it's just a really kind of fun, I'd say neopop adjacent project, but it's just really Hiatus Coyote just like has her own sound, honestly, and I really love hearing stuff like that. I'm definitely going to be listening to a lot more of it just in my free time.
gotcha. Okay. Well, mine is Beach Fossils, which again another band that I guess we haven't talked about on the podcast, which I'm surprised. They are definitely that indie band and everything. One of the many that I really enjoy. Their last album release was Somersaults in 2017, which is a fantastic album. He had two of their most popular tracks are off that album, Down the Line and May 1st. But they've released several albums since 2010 when they had their self-titled debut. But Clash the Truth album 2013 was also very good. So they're similar. I can compare them to Dive because one of the members, lead singer of Dive, was in Beach Fossils at the beginning of them, and then they kind of split ways. But they still all make music kind of all by themselves and everything. But they released a single earlier this year called Line in June, so just last month. And it's a pretty good track. So it's nice to hear that they're back. And I believe that they're going to be releasing an album this year. But I've liked Beach Fossils a lot. They've had like that tried and true surf rock sound that they've pushed through and everything. But they've always pushed themselves a little bit further with each album. It hasn't been stagnant throughout their career, which I think is actually pretty difficult to do for that indie sound because it's something that can get stagnant pretty quickly, especially if you've been doing it for over a decade. So, but it's definitely stuff that I want us to check out a little bit more, especially when they release their album later this year.
Yeah.
And also, I know another one that I talked about randomly, but I know the War on Drugs is releasing the album this year, so that's another thing that we need to check
Oh
out
yeah.
for sure. Because I know that's one that I did do as a court packing, and is one of my favorite rock albums we ever talked about on the fucking podcast.
That
So
was very, very good. Yeah. For sure. My last pick is Paris, Texas with Boy Anonymous. This is another one of those. They released their like first album and it's like kind of a really like wild hit. I compare them kind of to Injury Reserve. Their album Boy Anonymous was
okay,
like 28 songs, 21 minutes long. That's 22 minutes essentially. Like Injury Reserve, and that it's like experimental rap. I there's I think Situations is one of like the earlier songs in it, and I guess it has like a evolved trip hop kind of sound. It's like early Gorillaz was trip hop, I guess you could say, where it's like hip
hmm
hop music, but it's the bass is a little bit more moody and muddy, and it feels like like a trip sort of, I guess, like in a drugs kind of sense, in that way. But it's a really quick kind of thing. Some of these songs like kind of have like an alternative bent to them. And it's like a singing, wailing, rapping kind of thing. It's really kind of interesting stuff. Like I said, Situations is a really nice track through there, but you go through the whole thing. It's 22 minutes. That's what I love about these drops. You just kind of like go in, go out with a sound, and
it gets you into it. You know what you're getting, and you don't have to get drowned out by any filler, any bullshit.
yeah.
So
And it's perfect for bands like this who are like just coming out and just giving people like a
yes,
taste of what they've hopefully got coming out in the future. And Wow, like
Hmm.
what what an offering, at least for what I gotta say.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just like that, those are our music recommendations, and that's the episode for this week. Just a quick one. Got to be quick, but it's also just kind of like a tech test as well. So hopefully that goes decently. Knock on wood. Usually when I say that, I jinx things, but that's how it goes. Anyways, what does it mean to play us out? This is oh wow, I'm looking at like the time code. This is really short. Wow. But anyways,
Yeah, this is really short, but I mean, we didn't get our union break of July 4th, so we are working on a federal holiday, so that's why it's short, because I'm getting triple time right now, and Dan's like, I can't pay
yeah,
triple time.
we did it, Joe. This has been Audioface. You can find Sean on Twitter and Instagram at SW Suarez. You can find me on Twitter and Twitch at Dan from the Web, and on Instagram and TikTok at Dan from the Internet. The entire show can be found on Twitter and Instagram at Audioface Pod, and go to audioface.show for all of the links to all of the things that we do as we're expanding and doing more things. Also go to youtube.com/audioface because that is cool and you can help us grow the show, and you get videos pretty much every single weekday if I can help it of the podcast and all the stuff that we do. Album reviews, news, the works, the wonders. You love it, folks. And we appreciate you for continuing to check out this podcast. We're almost at 200. We're so close to 200. I really got to make that damn song. But thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next week where we're definitely going to have some new albums. Vince Staples next week.
It's
I'm so ready. Cheers.
to aloo.